put into the chat. I just put into the chat. Um, is it out of order? It's probably out of order. All about how you can buy my book. Everything I think is all in my mind. Um, Poetry concerning the human mind, and it's a really wonderful book. The back, everything was designed by me, inside and out. And since I was reading all about this reading, I found out that there was a theme. So I'm going to read a couple of food poems first. This is one that I wrote during the pandemic. I think I wrote it during a National Poetry Month as from one of those prompt things. It's called "Where All the Cool, Laid Back Folk Will Hang Out," and this was a lunch that I made one afternoon. Crispy balsamic black pepper flavored chickpeas on the side of a grilled cheese, provolone with freshly shelled fava beans and chopped fava skins and green onions seasoned with ginger and caraway on fluffy Iraqi samoon bread cooked in an electric tortilla maker till the bread gets crunchy, crispy, top and bottom, not as messy as you'd think, but everything you'd expect it to be, with a cold cucumber, wet palm sugar, horseradish side sauce, and some nice chilled Kamado tomato wedges to cleanse your palate between bites, accompanied by ice cold cardamom barley tea, a culinary cultural combo meal that would have been good with pickled herring and onions and dill marinade, but perfectly satisfying without. Because pandemic meals are like pandemic poetry, I surprised myself with my expanded repertoire and believe I should open a little tea house slash sandwich shop slash poetry parlor in the abandoned mobile station on Old Bath Road, but I will need to launch a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign to fund it. Thank you. And what I'm going to do is read a piece about my father, something my father used to make. Then at the very end, I'll read a piece about something my mother made. So the first is called "Once, Twice, Three Times a Gumbo." There's this thing about how we eat certain Southern foods, what we eat them with, how we combine them on our forks and in our spoons before we eat them is as personally proprietary as how we load our dishwashers. My father made his famous gumbo only 3 times. On the Saturdays after his son's bar mitzvah, there'd be an afternoon party at our 305 Fernhill Court home, usually in conjunction with an Alabama football game. Dad started cooking the gumbo early in the morning. We all pitched in. We chopped fresh onions, celery, okra, and a few other veggies. There were beautiful, plump, fresh caught Gulf shrimp he got from his shrimp guy, and live crabs he got from a crab guy. The cooked crabs were broken apart just before serving. I remember him making a roux. He had special spices he bought from a Cajun butcher shop on the outskirts of New Orleans on the causeway along Lake Pontchartrain. The rice was Mahatma brand brown rice, cooked in chicken broth placed on a large baking pan under the ceiling fan atop the butcher block island in the center of the kitchen to let it air out and cool off before fluffing it, then putting it in the oven till it was just warm enough for serving. A Japanese American friend once explained how the art of sushi rice making requires fanning the rice. When I told him about Dad's gumbo rice, he burst out laughing. The rice would be spooned into a bowl and topped with crab pieces and gumbo. The thick, soupy liquid would slide between the grains of rice. When you dipped your spoon into this delectable Creole stew and it penetrated the rice like a shovel hitting a treasure chest, you knew something visceral would happen when the spoon entered your mouth. And now I'm just going to start reading from my book. The very first page is called "A Slew of Haiku." It's 6 haikus, the last 2 of which have titles to them. 1, the meaning of life is not about breathing, but deciding to breathe. 2, cynicism is an acquired attitude. No one is born that way. 3, optimism is more than just an idea. It can be a mantra. 4, embrace your crazy. Who you are is who you are. You are a human. 5, figurative life vest for sale. When it rains and rains, my mind sends me to places perfect for drowning. 6, the worms can't do all the work. Teach a man to fish, and he might not have patience to wait for a fish. I think that'd be good inside of a fortune cookie. The cover man cometh. I am a champion cyclist. Not bicycles, emotions, I do it all. Ups, downs, inside outs, round and rounds, hills, valleys, twists, turns, loop-de-loops, and half pipes. I actually bore a hole through a solid granite mountain to create a shortcut I used only once. Yes, I am a champion cyclist. My face has been on the cover of Psychology Today thrice, for the 3 times I have won the Tour de France by simply writing out anxieties. And the world's greatest invention. My attention span is somewhat defective. My shrink says I don't look people in the eyes when I talk. Also, I purposely pretend to not listen when I listen, so when I say something, others won't be listening to what I say. It's as if that overly cushy pleather couch is a human-sized external disk drive wirelessly wired to his note-taking laptop so he can run a mental virus scan on me. The patent for that invention must be worth millions of dollars, maybe even billions. This is why I drive an hour and a half each way for a 50-minute appointment every other week. And I'm going to cut through to a piece called Your Smile Never Ceases to Exist as Part of Who You Are. Remember way back when your smile was your calling card, when you smiled for more than happy, when you smiled when you were embarrassed, when you smiled through a lie, when you liked to smile, when you used your teeth for more than chewing. Remember when you were always on, then you wanted to dim the lights a little? Attention felt like unattainable high expectations. Then you reverted back to wallflower. You were on vacation when you were present and no one knew but you. Silence was a place of comfort. Then you crossed a threshold when people started ending sentences and conversations with you with question marks that would not have had question marks in writing. Then you stopped going barefoot around family due to the myriad broken eggshells they left on the ground because it became mandatory to walk on eggshells around you. You felt hobbled by the unwritten rule that everyone else was allowed to stand up for themselves, but you must sit in the corner like Dennis the Menace as punishment for breathing. But when you breathed, you existed. Sometimes the act of existence is a form of standing up for yourself, even if you are unaware. Unwritten rules are unwritten and thusly incapable of being set in stone. The only things that are truly set in stone is that every human is composed of blood, skin, and bones, and every single person decides how to use their teeth. And this is called When You Don't Know All Your Words, tattooed on your face. You told me my house was made of straw, and you were the big bad wolf. Your words were hurricane force winds that blew my house down. I grew my next crop of hay in red clay so my next home could resist you. Then your words were made of fire, and my charred skin chipped away, revealing a leathery elephant hide that was heat and flame-proof. So you ordered your words to spit acid in my face, but the tears that rolled over the hardened scars on my cheeks learned to repel you. All your words, even when you try to be nice, are laced with ruinous disdain. But when you speak at others, you are actually talking to yourself. Wind has permanently mussed your stylish coif, leaving you unkempt looking. Fire has singed your eyebrows, permeating your warped conscience with the putrid aroma of burnt human hair. All that acid you consumed has etched nooks and crannies into your soul, that can only be filled with regret. Welcome to the mirror you have chosen to live in. This piece, a really old piece, it's called Wrong Time in Life. Sometime in the 90s, wow. I walked only 6 or 7 Manhattan blocks that afternoon, yet in that short amount of time, I completed my first marathon. Colors no longer existed. The world was gray, like a black and white TV. Everyone and everything around me was in slow motion. Then I realized it was I that was in slow motion. If you play a 45 RPM record on 78, the voices will sound like Chip and Dale or Alvin and the Chipmunk. If you play a 45 RPM record on 33 1/3, voices will stretch into an unintelligible perpetual piece of taffy. Emotions no longer existed. Exhalation no longer existed. My lungs filled with bus and taxicab exhaust. My every breath was asthmatic, and I couldn't find any oxygen with this new emblematic emphysema. All of a sudden, I was an ant who accidentally returned to the wrong mound of dirt. And when I delivered a microscopic piece of human discarded chocolate chip cookie crumb to my queen, I realized this was not my queen. And this was not the first time in my life I had arrived at the wrong place. And, okay, I'm a little ahead of schedule. So, why it's impossible to hang an excuse from a wave. A woman whose tenacity reminds me of Dame Elizabeth Taylor once said, "I'm not where I want to be, but I thank God I'm not where I used to be." When discussing her various addictions, obsessions, and temptations, she referred to herself as an urge surfer. The tenets of urge surfing. 1, urge surfers do not need surfboards. 2, an urge is a chip that grows too large for its shoulder host. 3, all urges require their host to walk on high wires made of barbed wire. 4, urges are profoundly verbal. Feel free to use me to ride the waves of the ocean that is your life. Where was I for? Oh. 5, urges are needy beggars. Don't throw me away. Keep me. You need me. 6, urges are misguided philosophers. If you say no to me, you are only expressing negativity. How to respond to an urge. 1, no thank you. 2, I was built to balance on my own 2 feet. Waves. 3, waves exist in oceans. My life exists on dry land. 4, feel free to surf the sea without me. Of course, I have no doubt that without me, you will sink. 5, goodbye, good luck, and thank you very much. Afterthought. Always be courteous and cordial to urges. Urges never die, they just slither away into the woodwork of your soul, only to resurface at the most inopportune times. And want to read next is, let's find the right picture. There's a lot of little pictures and illustrations in this book. Proper irrigation techniques for high wire trees. There have been times I have continued to cry after my tear ducts ran dry. Almond and avocado farmers hire water well drillers that use deep sea oil exploration drills to tap previously untapped aquifers. The Earth's water is not an infinite resource. Farmers dig deeper and deeper every year, yet I still continue to dry when my tear ducts run dry. Unlike the Earth, I will never run out of emotions. I won't deny myself a good cry, which is my equivalent of a balancing bar for an unrepentant high wire act life. I understand that my personal aquifers are a limited resource. I understand I can't keep drilling till I hit nothing or maybe cry a little magma, but crying on the inside is an option that has never worked out, and I can choose to let the high wire exist without attempting to ever cross it again. The afterlife of a tear. Every tear I cry tears a hole in my brain to reserve a place for a memory to reside. Sometimes certain memories decide to burrow a little further than the others, so when they get remembered, they have to be triggered. Sometimes someone will commit a crime against me I forgot I had previously experienced, and I see the previous perpetrator's face and the current perpetrator's face, which might make me scream loud enough to make them go deaf. There are memories we want to remember forever. There are memories not consequential enough to keep forever. Then there are memories that hide away in their burrowed holes that leave permanent residue in our souls called trauma. This is a piece that Rusty mentioned in her little review that is on the back cover of the book, that I'm not going to read, but I'm going to read the poem. It's called "Why Wonder Bread is the True Eighth Wonder of This Wondrous World." I am not Spider-Man, but I have climbed God only knows how many walls in my lifetime. My fingertips are so cut and calloused, they barely have fingerprints, but they are addicted to walls. When I get to the top of a wall, I turn into Humpty Dumpty. And as I sit atop the wall narrows and narrows, and I have a great fall. But all the king's horses and all the king's men do not exist in my world. And it never fails to be one of those so hot you could fry an egg days. And when I hit the ground, my shell breaks perfectly in half, and I turn into a perfect sunny side up egg. The person who discovers me calls the Guinness Book of World Records, who fly down in their corporate Concorde jet, then measure my diameter and proclaim me to be the largest sunny side up egg ever. And since no one knows I was the egg, the person who discovers me gets a photo on the cover of the New York Post, breaking my yellow with a slice of burnt toast. If I should ever climb a wall, have a great fall, and land sunny side up, I hope whoever discovers me calls Ripley's Believe It or Not. They too have a corporate Concorde, but they always travel with at least a case of Wonder Bread. And Wonder Bread makes the most wonderful toast. And the final poem in the book, where I get the title from the last line of the poem, is called Confessions of a Necktie Hoarder, or the Clip-On Conspiracy. I don't know if you can see this, but it has a photo of a necktie on it. So awkward has always been a word that describes me. Awkward conversations might just be my specialty. Appropriateness has no place in my out-of-place reality, manifesting a certain lack of destiny, a future undecided because I'm indecisive. To make a decision would cause derision in my short-sighted vision, so visionary yet so stationary compared to the speed of light, the speed of sound, and the speed of other people's thoughts having been thoughtfully thought out, so decisively and derisively to point out my awkward ways, and the fact that I always lose collar stays that come with dress shirts, and I find ironing shirts to be so therapeutic. The sight of a crisp, unwrinkled collar that chooses not to choke me makes me hesitant to tie it tight enough to make me feel relevant, or maybe even irrelevant in the event everything I think is all in my mind. So I think I have time for two more food poems. So the first one is called The Truth About Grits and Grapefruit Juice. Recently, I came across an oddity in a Cape Elizabeth Maine grocery store. True Southern style salt cured country ham. Maine grocery stores tend to have something that gets labeled ham steak, a wide cut 1/2 to 1 inch thick piece of what tends to taste like shutter deli ham. In case one finds true Southern style salt cured country ham amongst the fat back and uncut bacon and is a Yankee, proper cooking instruction is needed. Miss Mary Stuart Stevens, the queen of the kitchen, for the homecoming supper at the St. Peter Baptist Church on New Jersey Street in Mobile, Alabama will be proud of me. First, true Southern style salt-cured country ham should only be cooked in a well-seasoned cast iron skillet on high heat, so the edges will curl up and tasty char marks appear courtesy of the well-seasoned cast iron skillet. Remove the true Southern style salt-cured country ham from the well-seasoned cast iron skillet and liberally sprinkle it with black pepper. In the leftover ham grease, fry 1 or 2 eggs somewhere between over easy and sunny side up. Remove the eggs with a spatula and slide it atop a bowl of creamery grits. Well-cooked grits can be creamy without the use of dairy products. Gently cut the eggs, allowing the yellow to seep into the grits to create a rich, savory, sunshine yellow soup. Cut a generous piece of the true Southern style salt-cured country ham. Stab that true Southern style salt-cured country ham with a fork and dip it in the egg and grit soup and savor a flavor combination so perfect and simple. It must have been created by a 3-star Michelin chef in the French countryside, possibly near the Italian border, since grits is just another name for polenta, or is polenta another name for grits? Chicken, egg chicken, tomato, tomato, potato, potato, whatever. Next, take a good swallow of grapefruit juice to cleanse your palate of the salty, smoky, true Southern style salt-cured country ham. For some inexplicable reason, grapefruit juice is the perfect beverage accompaniment for true Southern style salt-cured country ham with egg and grits soup. But beware, never drink grapefruit juice after accidentally biting the inside of your lip. And one more poem, which is about something that my mother cooked, and it's called Why the Greek Gods Hired Jewish Mothers as Personal Chefs. In Jewish households, a mother's brisket is a food of the gods. Honestly, pomegranates and figs are gorgeous, but a Jewish mama brisket cooked in the oven with long, stringy onions on top and basted in its own juices every 20 or 30 minutes is better than filet mignon or Chateaubriand. When I hear the word brisket said aloud, my sensory memories go into overdrive. Why did I never ask Mom to teach me how she made hers? We'd host 20 to 30 guests for Rosh Hashanah and Passover, and there was never any leftover brisket. I think she poured beef broth and Worcestershire sauce over the top, then sprinkled the top with garlic, black pepper, and a packet of Lipton's onion soup mix, and topped it with thin slices of freshly cut Spanish onions. She would pull out the pan every so often and suction its juices with a turkey baster and drip the juices over the top. My dad would slice it thinly, and the au jus gravy and stringy onions went into a side bowl. At the same time, she baked her famous pineapple golden raisin kugel in the other oven. She always made a rice dish, usually with almonds and fresh stir-fried green beans. At the #1 spot on the buffet was her Greek salad with red onions, cuked feta, unpitted Kalamata olives, half cherry tomatoes, and Kin's Steakhouse Greek dressing. Mom never made homemade dressings, but her Greek salads were legendary. The multitasking skill to organize such dinners for so many people with everything always ready on time and never under or overcooked would put me into a straitjacket if I had to try to do so much at once. I was watching a show about Texas barbecue. They pulled a blackened brisket from a smoker, smoke wafting from its top. As they carved several slices, all my sensory memories could smell was Mom's Jewish mama brisket. Thank you very much, everyone, and please buy my book.